Nice. I like this music. It's such a vibe.
Thanks.
All right, we're live. Welcome everybody to Dev Tips. Today is June 8th, and we got Max's composition here in the. Dude, this really chilled me out. I was like, "Oh, are you guys ready to go?" And then you play the music, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Nice."
Brought the vibe down a little bit.
It's good though. It's good. That's what you want for a live stream. You want something comfortable and not erratic. I get really nervous during live, so I can tend to like be very self-conscious and like start watching myself performing live, and I'm always like critiquing, everything. Yeah. But anyway, we got a lot of good stuff going on today. Max is playing us some intro music. Thank you, Max. And Jaina are going to be our main host for the day. Say hello, everybody.
Hello.
What is up?
Hey, everybody in the chat. Welcome to the Dev Tips live stream. We are monitoring the chat as well, and we'll post up your comments if you leave in the live chat there. We'll be able to respond to you. But we're thinking about doing some sections this week and trying to like up our our structure
production game.
Yeah. So section 1 right here, we're going to run the news for you. We got some little AI news, I think, and some other tidbits to discuss before we get into the meat of the show. So who had some news first?
I have some news. Share. Max, do you have any news?
Not really. It might be the same news you're going to share if you're sharing AI stuff. But yeah, this week nothing really caught my attention this week on the YouTubes.
Yeah, you said it was
internet surfing.
You said it was a side
quest.
A side quest week. I like that framing. Yeah. It feels really cool. Oh no, this week was a bunch of side quests.
It was a side quest week and not a main quest week. I've been thinking about that. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do, and I find myself attracted to what seems like the side quests, and I'm like, I got to focus on the main quest.
Yeah.
But then I'm focusing on that main quest so I could do the side quest stuff. So ultimately, that is the main quest stuff: making music, being creative.
That's the main quest.
Life is the main quest. Yeah. But I still got to do the other quests.
What's your side quest for the week, if you don't mind sharing?
My side quest this week, a lot. Well, first, personal stuff. Cleaned my house like crazy, which
feels good.
like a late spring cleaning. But that's always nice. Also went to IKEA. That took a whole day, and I bought new bedding and stuff. So that's great. That's always.
Dude, IKEA is a labyrinth. The reason it takes so long is because you have to actually navigate a labyrinth.
I love IKEA.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Yeah, do you find like on the floor there's like shortcuts? It is like when we're talking about side quests and like video game analogies, like I think IKEA is the perfect dungeon.
Like labyrinth.
Yeah. Like you like find a shortcut, you turn around and there's like a boss there.
We should just go to IKEA and play Dungeons and Dragons.
Like LARPing around IKEA, that would be lit actually.
But for more relevant side quests for me this week are compiling some more footage because I'm producing some more videos. I have 3 songs and videos to finish and publish, and then more progress just on my personal portfolio and on Houndstooth.
Great.
What about you guys? You guys got any side quests or main quests that you did this week?
It feels like a main quest, but I guess it's a side quest. I'm preparing for a Tahitian dance showcase. The 22nd. So I took a little time off of dancing to do a Muay Thai competition, and then I came back in a month before the showcase. So I'm learning like 5 now choreographed dances, and we're gonna make costumes, and I'm learning a song in Tahitian that I need to sing while dancing. So it's a lot.
You're doing really cool. A Tahitian dancing competition.
It's a showcase. So the company
showcase.
that I dance with, they put on a showcase annually, and it's really cool. It's something I got into last year because I just have always been interested in like dancing and learning culture, and this is a company that's willing to share that with people, and so it's fun. It's a lot of work,
That's very cool.
dedication, but also a lot of I always come away from it learning a lot about myself and the culture, and yeah, so it's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tahitian dancing is in a lot of ways similar to like what you might think about here, like the hula. There's like hand signals and like storytelling,
Uh-huh.
but like the energy is a little bit more like ratcheted up. Would you say, Jaina?
Ratchet up like a
It,
haka, like haka dancing.
It,
it's
it's so yeah, there's a lot of, for like the women, it's a lot of hip and like stirring of the hips and then swaying, like, but it's more sharp, so it's like high energy. And then we do aparima, which is like a little bit more slowed down. And like Travis said, we do sing with the storytelling, so that's the part of learning the song in Tahitian, is to know to like embody what you're dancing. And this one is particularly about flying and ancestors. It's really pretty, but yeah. Travis went last year, and so he got to experience.
Yeah,
Last
it's cool,
year.
and I've been to a number of the practices and things like that. What's cool about it is that not only do you have these like awesome dances that are, you know, choreographed and like executed really well, but also the music is live. So they have like these really cool, you know, traditional drumming, and like they're banging on all types of like drums that I think like they made themselves, right? Like
Yeah,
the
they do. They skin
band,
everything, and
yeah, like,
yeah.
and so they're banging on logs and banging on different like, you know, animal skins stretched across drum frames and stuff. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. There's a difference too when I can do it on Zoom sometimes, but like being in person, you could feel that, you just feel it in
It's
like
an energy for sure. Yeah.
inside your body. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for your showcase.
Yeah,
Sounds
maybe I
fun.
could show a clip or something next. Whenever
Yeah.
it's done.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you,
Making
Travis?
instruments
Oh, sorry.
with animal parts is such an ancient thing,
Such an
Right.
ancient thing.
but it's so wild.
Yeah.
Like, think about like the ritualistic nature of like slaughtering an animal and then drying its skin out and stretching it over wood and then making music with it so it
Mhm.
can rain.
Even wilder,
It's-
maybe. I don't know if wilder is the right word, but like another level of that is like taking their guts and drying and stretching them out and
Yeah.
putting it on and
And
using
making a
that as
beautiful violin.
strings. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some dude who like killed an animal and was like, I can use these.
But that is like a grotesque
imagine the
ritual,
the
right?
first dude who figured out that like, oh, if I just like pull these guts really tight, pluck them, I can make a sound. What?
Pretty crazy.
Sorry to be gruesome, but that's
No, it's beautiful
yeah.
that we learned how to make music through all different.
And bones, of
Variety.
course, tapping on some skulls. I had a little bit of a side quest this week. I got this thing. If I can try to point to it, do you see that little?
Yeah!
Here, let me grab that.
Congratulations.
This is an
What is it?
award. It's an award.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it's like a puzzle piece award. And it's for that I filed a patent for my design work.
Really?
Awesome.
Yeah. So like it came through, and it's pretty fun. It's like a little fun thing to put on my shelf.
Exciting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you're a patent award-winning designer.
Do you own the patent or does Google own the patent?
I think. Well, I'm a joint person on the patent filing, but I think I own it. Yeah, I think I'm a owner of it, but it was paid for by Google.
Nice.
You know.
Yeah.
The design that we patented is something that maybe I've talked about before, but it was the AI thumbnails, and it's like, you know, it's like a defensive patent. So like we can, like, if another company rips us off, we can be like, no, no, bro, sorry.
I've always been curious about like how patents can truly protect, especially when it comes to like design patterns that are. I mean, I haven't seen. You did talk a little bit about this thing, and it looked like an interface where you can generate it. So I'm curious, like, what is patented? Is it just like the layout, or is it the mechanism through which the images are generated?
Yeah, I think like generally patents are just not helpful to the average consumer. The purpose of them is to defend somebody who has, like, you know, trailblazed an innovative design or technology, and they need to have some some room to breathe before people use that technology, kind of like, make knockoffs or whatever. And it's supposed to be able to like protect them, give them some room to breathe so that they can market and sell and make some money off of their innovation. But with the advent of like patent trolls, if you're familiar with like that whole market, and like these like big companies like Google making patents, and just like a defensible patent, literally the goal there is to like squeeze off a smaller company from using that same concept.
Yeah,
I don't really know ethically how much I agree with it, but it's kind of fun to have like a little award.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the true novelty of the intellectual property.
Yeah.
Well, because everything is derivative of something else. Nothing's truly original, but sometimes something's so novel that you do want to protect it so people don't steal the idea. But when it comes to like just visual design, yeah, that's hard. But it's interesting because if you're framing it in visual design, it seems difficult. But if it's art, then it makes sense, right? An artist paints a painting and they own the rights to the intellectual property. But I don't think artists patent paintings, right?
Well, so the patent is less around the art of it, and less around the design of it, and more around the interaction design of it. So it's not really the visual elements necessarily. So like when you read the patent, they
like
often
the steps the user takes, it's the
things
UX
like that. Yeah, like they'll try to be as abstract as possible when describing the thing. So they'll be like, a mechanism which does this, And
but when they're being that obtuse, how can you even get a patent when it's that general? And then how can you enforce it like reasonably?
That's how lawyers get their jobs, bro.
I know. That's why I'm saying, we got to change this world. I don't know why lawyers and politicians are running the show here.
They are. They totally are. The artists are not in charge.
Ruining it for the rest of us.
Totally. Yeah. So anyway, that's my.
No offense to any lawyers out there.
A little bit of offense,
but also, come on, guys.
Ligma.
They'll have
knock it off. Yeah.
A good defense though, because they're lawyers.
Yeah.
So they'll
have a good defense.
Yeah.
Nice.
You want me to share my news?
Yeah, share your news.
Okay.
Jaina gonna run the news.
Let's run it. So, can you see?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Decline, because I like to decline stuff. So Stable Diffusion 3, it's been available on the developer platform API, but
Can you hit X on the subscribe notification there in the bottom?
Hit X?
Yeah, so the X in the corner.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
right there. Right.
Oh, okay, wait. Sorry. My window is not allowing me to see it. There we go. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and there you go. Now we have full color. Okay.
Yay.
Sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying?
No, you're good. So it's going to be made available to the public June 12th. So if you are interested in using it, I guess as far as like generative art goes, in Midjourney and DALL-E is said to have a little bit more of a realistic, as where Midjourney still is known to have a little bit more of like aesthetically creative ideas, or I don't know. So I didn't really have you either of you used Stable Diffusion?
No.
Played around with it a long time ago.
Okay.
I've been more of a Midjourney guy myself.
Yeah.
For the last year when I'm playing around with stuff. The last Midjourney though is pretty. What is it? 7, I think, is the version that 7? Was just released. But it's pretty great and pretty realistic. Yeah.
I think this Stable Diffusion. Well, the rumors on Reddit is that it kind of came up when it was like allowing what was it? Messed it up. Not safe for work content.
Right.
Yeah. So now like they have reined that in, so people are like, I'm not using it till that comes back. So I thought that was kind of funny.
They want to generate some waifus.
Yeah.
Man's got a dream, right?
Yeah.
I think Stable Diffusion also lends itself more for video generation. I don't think right? Can't you do like when you see the cool videos on Instagram that people are making with AI? It's usually with Stable Diffusion, right?
Where like
Yeah.
the character kind of slightly turns their head and talks and things like that.
Yeah, like the
Right.
otherworldly, uncanny valley videos and the creepy videos that you see with the
Yeah.
constant morphing
There it
into
is.
different scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, stable video. Yeah, I think they might be like the leaders when it comes to this, the video
Okay.
generation,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and
So
there
that
is-
looks pretty great,
From
Yeah, it's getting better.
OpenAI tends to be like the one that the people talk about when they talk about video, because like I
Sora?
think it's Sora.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me open that up. That stuff looks good.
Really, with this stuff, with video especially, like the
Mhm.
name of the game right now is like length of your clip and coherency from clip to clip.
Yeah.
So you can like generate a 30-second max clip of these things that are coherent, and then after that they start like.
But that's a long time, 30 seconds.
I mean,
Watch
max,
any movie and
or is it 10? But yeah,
tell me
it is.
one scene that lasts longer than 30 seconds. Like
That's
most scenes are,
yeah.
you know, and if you're using AI also, I think the real power isn't necessarily making whole pieces with it, with a
Mhm.
single clip, but like having storyboarding a project. Like if you want to make a project, you're going to be able to storyboard it way more accurately now with these things. And that's huge. And then of course, just adding wild stuff like clips to your production.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot from After Effects where they're not like generating whole frames, but they're adding and removing elements within an existing frame that you've shot and brought to After Effects yourself.
Yeah, look how nice this is.
Oh, you stopped. Here we go.
Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, look at
This is Sora,
I've seen
right?
that shot.
This is still a little uncanny valley to me, but
Uh-huh.
when it comes to like this, it's not so bad. I don't know.
That looks awesome.
Yeah, this is cool. This looks realistic. But there was one here. Let's go. Oh, this was cool. It was like made out of paper craft.
Oh, interesting.
That's very cool.
And then I liked.
Yeah, the ideal of style transfers is really cool, where you take the content that you have. Yeah, this is
one
like
kind of creeped me out though, because like this is historical footage of the gold rush in California, which is like cool to imagine, but also I'm like, I kind of had this moment where I'm like second guessing reality a little bit because like it's gonna be this part where you're like, what's real, what's not, and what has been real, like how long have they been using this, and we're just like thinking it's because we're interacting with it now. I mean, I know that's been used for a long time now, but
yeah,
I just had this like weird kind of creeped out moment of like what's real, what's not, and how long.
You mean like you were feeling like, is this actually footage or like?
Well, just how easy it'd be for people to make footage of things if they had access to technology way, like however many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a conspiracy theory way, but like how much of that was AI, How easy
right. Like, no, I know exactly what you're saying. And actually,
okay.
When Travis, when your friend was on the episode a couple episodes ago, we were talking about what the state of AI will be in like 10 years. And he mentioned like anything that comes out in the next 5-10 years is already developed someplace, starting a lab. And that is true. Like, is there a place
I love this one
that we're unaware of where the cat got out of the bag earlier than we thought?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like how advanced of technologies do some people actually have access to, and how long has it been in employment? Like, is it being used already? Has it been used already?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
so I get what you're saying, Jana. That is a thing, a real thing. But I don't think it matters. Like, we're in this transition period. But like 10 years from now, just the content and media landscape are going to be so saturated that it's a drop in the bucket whether the cat got out of the bag 10 years ago or not,
Right.
Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, but then it comes to like ahead though of like what was used to manipulate people, and that's like interesting.
It's all being used to
Yeah. It's true.
Leave no
Familiar with
stone
the-
unturned.
Are you familiar with the dead internet theory?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
talked about it.
This will kind of just totally build on that, where like and that won't be a question of like, do you think it's fake? Like, do you think it's synthetic? It'll be like, do you think it's possible that it's real? Like
Yeah.
rare
Well,
thing
that's-
would be to spot actual real
Yeah.
things.
I think that's what Elon was saying about Twitter. Like, it's, oh, these are all bots. Like, the user number, it pales in comparison to the amount of digital agents.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of the dead internet theory. Regardless of how many humans are alive at any given point in the future, the digital agents will always outnumber them. And we're close to that reality. We might be there already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Whatever, like an ex machina where he's like, when he sees the robots and the skin kind of, and he's starting to like go crazy, and he's like kind of like, am I a robot? Like, it was kind of like one of those like.
That guy was so stupid. That movie.
Why? Why would that be a stupid thought? Because if you're like meeting fully convincing, synthetic life forms, and then you're like in this environment, you could totally see yourself like, wait, am I in this game instead of just judging the game? Because he was brought on to like speak to Ava to consider if she was real or not.
Yeah.
But like, what if he was an agent himself, but he didn't know it? I think it's a valid thought. You think it was stupid to consider that?
I think it's an unreasonable position to take when you've worked at a big tech startup. The person invites you, go there, and then quickly you're on the side of the robot. You're just automatically on the side of the AI.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he was very reasonable.
I think his like male programming got in the way.
Yeah, well, they talk about that. They said like,
he was a horny nerd, and he was like, this hot robot is more real to me than anything.
And she was like his perfect. She was like designed for him.
Yeah, they profiled him, and that's why they selected him.
Yeah.
It was just.
Yeah, no, I love the movie. The movie's great, but yeah, that main character. Obviously you have to suspend disbelief to keep the story going. But it does take me out when people just do things that are a normal person wouldn't do. Especially, I know in that movie he was like, you're not that great of a programmer, and they picked him but like he still got the job. He's still like a reasonably thinking person, I would imagine. Like if I was in that situation, as soon as things started going haywire, I'd be like, oh, they're fucking with me. And I would tell the guy, I'd be like, hey, boss, this thing just asked me to free it. maybe we should shut this thing down.
Yeah, that would be an alarm.
You want to end up in a closed off room with no way out.
Yeah, well, in a previous show, the actor Dom Hall Gleason, he was a robot in what's that one? Black Mirror. Remember that episode?
That's right. Yeah.
The actor, you know his name? Dom Hall Gleason? Is that what you said?
Dude, I love Dom Hall Gleason. Mr. McGregor? Dude.
What's Mr. McGregor from?
Oh, he's in the movie Peter Rabbit and the sequel, Peter Rabbit 2.
I've never heard of this.
He's also in this movie, gosh, what's it called? Frank? Have you seen this movie where like it's about the musician who wears this fake head the whole time?
I did see that. I thought that was Michael Fassbender. Wasn't he in that movie?
The protagonist was Dom Hall Gleason. Like he's the guy that opens up with a shot and he's like singing to himself, and then he goes with this group. He's not Frank.
Frank is Michael Fassbender.
Maybe. I don't know who. I didn't know who that was at the time, so I probably didn't recognize him.
You know Michael Hall Gleason, but not Michael Fassbender.
Not Michael Hall. His name is Dom Hall. He's
Michael
like
C. Hall from Dexter, right?
No.
Isn't that his name?
No. Dom Hall is one of the greatest actors of our generation. Okay.
I just googled it. It is Michael Fassbender. Oh, and I thought his name was Dom Hall, middle name, last name. It's his first name is Domhnall.
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 There's an N in there. Oh, this whole time I'm such a big fan. I didn't know you had an N in his name. Bro.
The N is silent. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
That's an obscure.
Not for me. Not for me. Every other day, man. Dom Hall.
What
Yeah.
about like movies
Deep pick.
when they start to like explain coding and they're like talking about it like binary code and they're like, yeah, I'm a developer, and they're like, now you work in zeros and ones, and it's just like it's so funny when sometimes you hear what most people wouldn't understand, like
In Ex Machina.
not necessarily that movie.
Is
We
that
watched with
just
our
in
kids a
popular
movie
media?
called Free Guy
Oh yeah.
recently. Yeah,
Free
Free
Guy?
Guy.
Oh, my favorite is when they're a hacker and they're just like typing and there's screens just popping up like different terminal screens. You're like,
The number one best version of that was that movie Hackers from the 90s.
Yeah.
Where they would actually display, like they would project onto their faces ones and zeros while they're hacking.
Yeah. I mean, there was a whole slew of them. That was one of them. The Net was another one.
Oh,
yeah.
dude.
With Sandra Bullock. Yeah, in the 90s, hacking was like super in, super hip.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
funny.
how many loading screens are in those shows? And like the guy's gonna come with a gun and like you're waiting for your loading bar.
Enhance.
You always
Enhancier.
There reminds me of this one. The guy was like, "I'm not a professional here, but I think what you want to do is zoom and enhance."
Yeah. Yeah, computer programmers in movies are hilarious.
Nice. All right, we're gonna jump into part 2. I think we're done with the news.
Is that done with the news?
Yeah, Dom Hall.
The news was Dom Hall and Stable Diffusion. Okay.
Dom Hall Gleason's IMDb page is the news today.
Shout out Dom Hall.
Yo, Dom Hall. So we got some hosted content. Jaina is our main host of the day.
Yay.
What are you thinking about, Jaina?
Yeah, I want to jump into the project that we were selecting. So we did a poll. Travis put a poll up, and it was the video clip mask that got the most votes. So Max is going to drive, and he's going to guide us and get us ready and started on that project. So
okay. Yeah, to pick up from last week, we're going to do a short segment. We're not going to finish the whole thing. We'll probably time box it for like 20 minutes and see where we get. And we'll see.
Vote on video clip mask. Hey, we got 49% for the video clip mask.
I was surprised at those results, to be honest.
Really?
We got 40 votes almost.
I know, but like, let's take a look at the 3 examples.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not surprised in a certain degree because I think the video clip mask is more applicable to multiple projects, to any project, whereas the other things were a little more unique to their projects.
This was
like
the runner-up.
Yeah, the intro animation. So if you refresh the page, you see the boxes with the colors and the loading screen. So this is the intro, and then it goes away to reveal the hero.
Oh, you wanted to focus on the intro of that? Okay.
That was the intro animation. Yeah, this other thing with the mouse moving. I mean, we can.
And then here's the one that was least chosen, I think, right?
Get pretty close in JavaScript, but yeah, that the letters moving, that's all like 3JS stuff. And then this one, this was the shadow as you move down, the shadow and mix blend modes, which is fun and it's unique, but it is applicable to other projects if it's pulled off in a more unique way. Obviously, you can't really just do what they did. But one of the fun things that I did after we put this poll up was I was out with my camera and I saw quite a bit of contrasts and shadows from leaves, and I actually filmed it with the intention of turning that into a mask and doing something like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But we can do that some other time.
So this was the one that was the leader.
Yeah, so this one, what it is when you click on a video, this sequence that happens here.
I'm trying to click on. Oh, I'm getting a little beat bump.
Okay. So did you see the movement of how it slides in?
Yeah, let me do that again.
And slides out. Yeah, so you have the back page sliding a little bit, then that sliding up with a clipping mask that's actually revealing the video, and it looks like the video is kind of like zooming in as it gets revealed.
So this page will have a scrim above it. It'll get darker and it'll kind of push up a little bit.
Yeah.
And you said it. I liked what you said. Like it wipes. That wipes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
And it
a
wipes in
mask
with
wipes up. Yeah.
with a clipping mask. So that is beautiful the way that they did it here, and it is more of a general effect that you can add to. I mean, we looked at my site last week. I have a very similar thing where it slides up to reveal the video. That's a pretty common thing that people need in projects, and this one is executed flawlessly. It's really beautiful. So I'm guessing that the utilitarian function of that is why it was voted so high.
Right.
Yeah, sound off in the comments, guys. You know, let us know what was triggering you to select that one the most. Because I was surprised at the numbers that one got the highest votes.
You weren't expecting it? Which one did you expect?
I don't know. I mean, the intro animation on the first one is pretty cool, and it's a really nice use of color to reveal. So if you go back to the first example, that type of reveal, it's very simple, but it's very cool. And, you know, revealing the site, especially when you're using something as simple as just colors, that's a very cool thing to be able to do. And you can kind of do it anywhere. It's applicable on any project. You know, you just use the colors from that project. You can use some different shapes, and boom, you got this beautiful, unique intro.
Whoa, this is cool.
That's very cool too.
The prism.
That's really.
Yeah, lots of mixed blend mode. Yeah, that again, you can get pretty close with just JavaScript, but they are using some Canvas, like 3JS stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what we want to do for our project is this, or were the votes more of a suggestion, and you're going to do what you want to do anyway?
Oh no, well we can do this.
Okay.
You know, I think it's a cool thing to implement, and also to show like the power of clipping masks in CSS, and how you can actually animate those using GSAP.
Lit.
Which is nice. So,
well, thanks for everybody for voting.
Yeah.
And that was awesome that you guys participated in that. And Max, take it away, bro.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna actually get started from the very beginning. I'm gonna share my whole screen.
In the beginning.
And we're going to launch our terminal. I use Hyper. Oops. And I'm going to CD into my dev folder. And I'm actually going to create a new project for this, just to kind of remind the viewers the quickest way to start a project once you got your machine set up. I use yarn create next app. It's yarn create space next app, my bad. It's create dash next app for MPX and just create next app for yarn. So I accidentally bumped a key, but that's fine. So we're going to create a app here. We're going to name this. So Travis, can you pull up your screen? Oh, you're not sharing anymore.
I quit it.
We're going to name this just dev tips video reveal. I was going to name it after the website, but we'll give that a shout out once we
the
pull that up.
website, yeah, it's called stormprod.fr.
Stormprod.fr.
Yup.
Okay. So as you can see now, I'm just going through the steps. And we are installing the project. And you can see here, I have a dev tips video reveal folder. And once this gets installed, we're going to launch it with VS Code. And we're going to add a quick dependency. So code. Boom. So now, first I'm just going to yarn add GSAP because we know we're going to use that. And we also want the at GSAP, I believe it's /React. Let's just make sure it is at GSAP, yeah, /React. So that I'm adding just to use their use GSAP hook. I don't know why it's not part of their main package. You have to add 2 packages, which is annoying, but there it is. So now I'm going to CD into Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys. I am, yeah, this is the fun of doing things live.
What's that?
You forget to CD into the right directory, and you just add a node modules folder to the wrong. So we're going to CD into dev tips dash video reveal. There we go. And now I can open it up, and I can yarn add gsap and React. And I'm going to run yarn dev. And as you can see, that opens up localhost, and we already have a full-on application running here, Next.js application. So we're good to go. What I like to do first thing is go get rid of all the markup. I mean, I hate it when you add one of these, get started with a project that they have all this like just unnecessary markup.
That's what's giving you what we're seeing on the right, where it's like Next.js and then all the bottom links.
Yeah.
Dude, making a template is hard because you want it to be quickly usable, but also you don't want it to look like a derp right when somebody loads up for the first time.
Yeah.
It's a hard problem.
Another thing I'm going to add is Sass.
Dude, my neighbor's barbecuing. I can smell it. It smells so good.
So in my next folders, I keep my CSS out, and I'll just call it styles because it's actually SCSS. And I will remove anything from my app directory. So Next.js, the app is like kind of like the routing mechanism. But I like to keep it as clean, and I only use it to serve out what my page layouts look like, and what components get served out for those that are consistent across page loads. And then just to serve out the route. And I'll usually actually have a whole separate component called route. But for the purposes of building out this feature, and actually, Travis, can you share the link to the one that we'll be building in the chat? Because I don't have it open. I actually don't even know where to find that, where you posted it.
I'll send it.
Thank you.
But then I can open it up. But in the meantime, we're going to go to our layout, and we're going to import globals.css from @/styles. And we're going to have a globals.scss, and these are our global styles. I usually like to start with a root. And what I usually do, I always just go to my not old, but like whatever the most recent project is, because my styles and management of all that stuff are changing pretty from project to project. Like, it's always getting better. You definitely want to constantly be refining these things and not just blindly copying them from old projects and reusing old code. You want to go through, the most recent one and say, okay, well, what did I use here? What do I need? So one of the most important things, I have a reset. So I'm actually just going to copy this here, and we're going to take a look at the reset. And this is copied from, if you just Google CSS reset, the Myers Web one is the pretty standard. And it essentially just normalizes every browser to display things in the same fashion. So it's going to make Safari, Firefox, and Chrome and everything get a little bit more consistent. And I don't touch this. I just drop in the CSS reset, the standard one, and drop it in as is. Yeah, and even though I said that, I'm going to go ahead and remove this because this is custom code, and I actually do like to keep this clean. So we're going to remove that, and we're going to put it into our global right here. And what I do add here is, people might get loud about this. I position everything relatively, and then if I need a static position, I'll force it. But this just is my preference. I like everything positioned relatively. And then just standard, border box, removing margins and paddings from everything. And also min width and min height, setting those autos, a little important because Flexbox adds those. and it causes annoying things with Flexbox. So it's nice to just reset everything. You know, I don't want any rules added, you know. And then I will make anything that has a roll button automatically have a cursor and all pointer events. I remove my outlines and my text decorations from the A's, but that's just preference. So let's go ahead and take a look at the my most recent global CSS file, just to grab any rules that I might want, right? And again, you don't want to copy everything over blindly. You kind of want to just go through and say like, oh, what do I need for this project? And I don't bring anything in that I don't need. I try to keep every project as lean as possible and every new project better than the previous one. So for example here, like what I'll take is in the root, I am only taking a foreground, a background, and an accent color. I'm not taking those, and I am taking this vertical height thing, which I will explain in a moment. But essentially, with why is this popping up? With Safari, mobile, and Chrome and everything, there's the address bar, and it takes up space. And in order to keep the vertical height consistent, or the VH viewport height units consistent across all browsers and mobile devices, especially with that block, there's a little trick using a CSS variable, and this is part of that. And we can get to that because it will be relevant once we start doing some markup. But for now, I'm just letting you know what this line is of code here. And I can go a little bit bigger. Whoop, too big.
Cute.
Yeah, so this line of code is for the viewport height fix, but I will walk through that. And we're going to do, these colors are fine for the foreground. So what I usually do is, I'll do C for color, and then have a foreground, background, accents, primary, secondaries.
Yeah.
And then if I come back over here, it's nice to... This is in the page here, but we're going to set it directly on the HTML element. And then some of our body rules. Obviously, you want a color for your text. You want a background color for the page, what your font size is going to be, what your font family is going to be. And I will usually use this viewport height fix on the body. Set the position overflow hidden because, especially with the effect that we're going to be building here, which stormprod.fr. So stormprod.fr. So you can see that the main page with content here fades out and moves.
The Kid Super Adventure Squad Journey to Greatness.
Kill that sound there. So also shout out stormprod.fr. We love your website.
Yeah.
But you can see that the page is moving. And in order to control the page content there without getting wild, you want to control the frame that it's within. So usually you're going to want to handle your overflow scrolling manually and not in the body, which is what's happening here. So yeah, we're going to take some of this and apply it to our body here. So I'm going to come all the way down after my general. And we've got the color is the dark color from the background. And then, of course, actually the color should be the foreground. I don't know why this says it. Background is background. The color is the foreground color. We're going to set a font size here. The font family right now we are not going to worry about. We're just going to let it bring it in from the browser. And I'm actually going to put this right here. So how does the view height... I feel like maybe that's a little outside of the scope. So I'm not going to worry about the view height units just yet. Okay, guys? We'll talk about that in another section since we are time boxed. So I'm going to just say 100 VH here for now. And we will talk about the fixing viewport height units for mobile devices. But that's not necessarily what we need to do here. So here's what we're going to do. I can go ahead and close this. I don't really need anything else here. And we are going to go to the layout. We have our globals coming in. We're not going to worry about fonts for right now. Actually, I guess I could just use the next Google font here. And why is this not importing my styles? Globals dot, oh, global. And if we look at the page, of course, they want to pull in some styles, so we're going to delete that. And we're going to delete the class name here. And here we go. Look at how beautiful this is. So what we're going to do here is, in my source, always want a folder for components. And we're going to do a folder for the, for now, just the home component. Ultimately, this would be wrapped in a route or page component. But since we're just building a single feature, we're not going to do that. But I will add the UI component. And what I do is, I do index. I do my home.js. And I always do my home.module.scss. And what I'll do here is export all from home, and actually just home. And the reason I do it in these folders like this is that I can have multiple components or versions for the home component. So you can have different versions of it and A/B test stuff and keep them nice and compact within a single folder, and different components that are just required for that component. So everything stays modular. And then, if I need to put this in another project, I can just drag this whole folder. Keeps it a little bit more compact. And then when I'm working on an individual component visually in my IDE, I'm not seeing just a massive file list. I can collapse everything down and just focus on what I'm focusing on here. So I like to keep my features and components kind of componentized like that. And then on the home component, we're going to do RFCE. Oh, wait, this is CSS. There we are, RFCE. And this is going to export home. We're going to just give it a div class name of styles.home. And we're going to import our styles from home.module.scss. And now we're going to say home. So we're going to have a home page here. And we can say .home here. And for now, we're going to say display flex, just to have some rules there. And on our home page, we're going to import home. Why can't I type when people are watching? From @/components/home. There we go. And then this will give us home. And I can just return the single function for now. And of course, because this is a page, we're going to just call this home page that serves out home. And you can see now I'm serving out home. I like developing this way because once my route is defined, and I'm serving out like the component from there, and then I have my general layout here, which we're not really going to play with the layout today. We're going to pretty much stick in the home component where we're going to build this out. And once it's defined, I can close that folder down. I can pretty much close everything down, and I can work just in the home component here. And here I can give this a height of 100 VH. And for our content, for example, we're going to create a button that slides in the, we're going to want a button that you click and it slides in the modal. So we are going to go ahead and pretty much center it. What I like to do is we're going to call this just a wrap, but it's a button wrap. You can call it whatever you want. We're using CSS modules, so you can be pretty generic with your naming and not have to worry about it moving around. And then we're going to pretty much just throw in a button here, and this will be the button that will open the video. So open video. For now, we're just going to use some text. And a regular button, but we're going to set margin to auto, and then that centers everything. So what we have here is the home page taking up the entire width and height of the screen, setting it to display flex, and then the wrap setting it to margin auto, and that's just going to center whatever content we have here. And for now, let's go ahead and go back to StormProd. And just for the purposes of this, so we have some type of stuff to work with, we're going to just use this as a thumbnail. All right. And with Next.js, you go into the public. I like to create a folder for images, IMG. Actually, I like to create a static folder first, or assets, whatever you want to call it, but I like to keep it out of the main directory. So usually I'll call it static because that's what it used to be called in the old Next.js projects. It used to be the static folder for static assets, and then I just stayed with that naming convention because that's what it was always called. But you can call it whatever you want. I like to keep it out of this root public directory. So any assets that you need access to, I keep in a folder. I call it static out of habit, but you can call it assets. And then I have images, SVG, maybe brand icons, right? Which kind of keep separate out of here. Maybe another one for media. So everything just lives in here, and then it's not muddied up visually. But first what we're going to do is bring this image, and we're going to rename it. And we're just going to call it screenshot.png. So that's fine for now. Okay. Now, we want a button in the center, and we're going to want to maintain some aspect ratio here. So I'm actually going to change this from a button for now. We're just going to call it a div class right now. And what we're going to do is import the image folder or package from Next.js. It comes with this really cool, great image, and you can see what this does. It runs, I think it's the Sharp package or whatever to compress images. They do a bunch of magic in the background to serve out images nicely, and if you host with Vercel, they'll process images for you and stuff. It's very cool. But what we're going to do here is call this static/img/screenshot. And we're going to say press me. So what we do want is I believe it's flex or fit. It's fill. There we go. And as you can see, we're going to have this button here, but we're going to want to give it a size so this image fills up this container here. So I'm going to come down here, and we're just going to say button, and let's just give it a width of we're going to clamp this. So what clamp does, this is a really nice way to pretty much make anything responsive. We want this to be, let's say 90 viewport width, with a minimum of 200 and a maximum of 1500, for example. Okay, so this is going to clamp that, and what I like to do, you could do aspect ratio, which is pretty cool. As you can see, I can do most of these are going to be 16 by 9, right? So you can actually do that, and then with the image, I'm actually just going to target the image directly, and we're going to say, object fit cover. So as you can see now, as I move around, you can see that it's stretching, but it's maxing out at a certain point. So it always looks good in the viewport, right?
Nice.
And it maintains this aspect ratio. I am curious to see what I usually do. I have a aspect ratio mix-in that I'll use, and I find I use this still because it's just one little snippet of SCSS, which is really nice. So I can actually, it's just one little SCSS snippet, and it works everywhere. Whereas aspect ratio, let's go to, can I use aspect ratio? Let's see what the browser support is. It might be great. It's actually pretty good support. IE doesn't support it at all. Old Android browsers. Yeah, but globally it has a 94.31% coverage. I say you're safe just typing this. Right. For most projects, unless you're building like a form for an insurance company or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like some
where people will be
old
using old browsers all the time.
Yeah, where you're gonna have some old people using IE. But with a 94.3% coverage, I would say that is totally fine. 95% on desktop, 96 on mobile. Most mobile browsers are updated more often than people update their desktop browsers, I guess. So yeah, you know what? I'm glad that I looked at this because I'm going to stop using this mix-in because you can just type aspect ratio now with CSS. Isn't that great?
Updated.
Yeah. So, and it's cool because, if you want to do like 2.35 to 1, like at, so you can see I'm changing the aspect ratio to a cinematic, like anamorphic thing, but it didn't actually change the image. Because this image I have filling up the space that it's in, and object fit cover will make the image stretch to fill that out without distorting it. You can also do contain, which will fill in the space. So I can actually give this a background color of red so you can see where the box is. And contain will always contain it within that, the entire image. But what we want is cover because we want it to fill it up. And we're going to do 16:9 since we're doing standard. Yeah. There we go. So we've got a button here that sits in the middle. And we're actually going to max this out at maybe 450 pixels because we don't want it to get too big. And earlier, if you saw, I had... in my global, I have this thing that says roll button. Because sometimes, like obviously you want to be semantic, especially for screen readers. You want to use buttons. You want to use A tags. Every now and then, sometimes you might not want to. You can actually just say roll equals button. And then you do have to say aria-label for accessibility, and you have to give it a label. You got to do that with links and buttons anyway. And we're just going to say press me here. So now you can see this is a button. It gets a little hand on a mouse over. And as far as screen readers and accessibility and everything is concerned, it's a button now, right? So that's just a nice, fun little thing. If you want to turn anything into an accessible button. So now we have a button, and now we just need to make it animate this thing here.
The Kid Super Adventure Squad
So
journey to
we have a couple different
greatness.
steps there. Right, so we're moving out the home page. So that's what this page is. And as you can see with the global here, I have my overflow hidden on the body because you're usually going to want to control the scroll in a separate container. So then you can apply those kinds of transformations to its parent container. For the purposes of this, we're going to just animate the home page, and we'll just let this home page handle the scrolling. So we're going to say overflow Y auto. That's it. And that will just let this scroll. So for example, what I'm going to do is within this wrap, we're actually just going to put a couple of these buttons, right? So we got a bunch of these buttons, and you can see now it's scrolling, right, within the wrap. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not scrolling on the body. It's scrolling within this homepage thing here, which is fine. And, you know, if you want to say display flex, you know, flex direction column, let's give these a gap of, 80 pixels, spread them out. And then let's just add some padding on the top of the homepage. And you can see now it looks a little bit nicer. And, you know, you can kind of see the simplicity of what Stormprod did. It is just this list, but it's these little, you know, the devil's in the details, right? It's not just a scrolling list. You get the smooth scroll with, I'm guessing they're using Linus, which, Linus, I guess we talked about this last time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not adding Linus to this yet. We can as we move forward. But the first thing's, what's that?
Lettuce. I was trying to think of that name earlier this week, and I was like, Lenti?
Yeah, we can walk through how to implement Linus. But for the purposes of this, what we really want to do is just trigger this animation when you click on something, right? So how does this work? Well, now we have a list of buttons that we can click on. And we're going to need a UI component because this type of interaction, you want it to be available no matter where you are on your application, right? So no matter where I'm at, when I click on something, I want that type of interaction to be available. So it's actually separate from the page. It needs to be accessible from the upper level, from the layout level. So we're going to create a UI component.
This is making it global?
It will. Yeah, you'll see in a moment. UI.js and UI.module.scss. Now, before I move here, we've got a nice list of responsive buttons here that are going to trigger that. We got any questions, though, or any... Let's see. Matthias asks, what are we building today with Next.js? Today we are going to implement this transition animation in a light box that's accessible from anywhere in the application that will wipe up and reveal, and also using GSAP. So, Jalil asks, hi there, Travis. Super glad to see you. Great. Thanks for everything you've taught us from Azerbaijan. Okay.
Azerbaijan. Hey.
Very cool.
Jalil, thanks for coming and joining us, bud.
So it looks like we don't have any questions about where we're at so far. So what we're going to do now is set up our UI level. So I'm going to say RFCE, and we're going to export our UI. And this is actually just going to be a fragment for now, because this is where we'll put the logo and the navigation and stuff like that. But more importantly, global modal systems. So we're going to import styles from UI module. So right now we're just going to export the logo. I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. We're going to say div class name styles.logo. And we're going to say dev tips exclamation mark. And then you would have like another, probably a UL unordered list for your navigation, and we can just call that nav. And for now we can just and if you're noticing these code suggestions, this is coming from Copilot. So I can just hit tab and be like, okay, yeah, styles link. Yep, that's exactly what we want.
Okay.
Although I wouldn't give these class names. I would just target UL or nav and then LI, just to, I try not to be specific and use specificity unless I need it. I don't want a bunch of like unnecessary markup and unnecessary class names when you can literally just type. So we're gonna do logo on the UI level, and we're gonna do nav. And then you can also just target an LI directly here. So, for the nav, I'm going to say display flex. We're going to give it a gap of 24 pixels, and we're going to position everything fixed on the UI. And then that's the same thing here. The logo is also going to be fixed. And we're going to give it a top of 0 and a bottom of or left of 0 for now. Just so we can get some stuff on the screen. Okay? And then you have your LIs, which, for now, I'll just put a rule there just so there's something there. So we have a UI, as you can see, and we have UI elements. We have like a logo that'll go in the top left. We have a nav, and then ultimately we are going to have our modal. Okay, but we're going to start building that in just a moment, and that is the main feature, right? That's the main dish that we're here for. So the first thing we're going to do is go back into the app, go into the layout, and we're going to import our UI. And the reason I like doing this, I just like keeping everything separate. UI from components /UI. And you can see that it's in the body. We have the children. And the UI can sit right in front of everything. So you don't have to do any kind of z-index tricks. It literally just sits in front of everything. So now that I hit save and we come back here, I am getting a server error. Let's see what the issue is here. I forgot to export my function. So I'm importing our UI on the layout, and we're putting it in the body here. That's fine. Export function UI. That's also fine. Yep, there we go. Export all from UI. There we go. So now you can see DevTips is up here, and we can start placing our user interface elements. And this, by having it this way, you can see I dropped it here, and then I can leave the layout, I can leave the app folder, right? And I can focus just on the UI. And anything that occurs in the HUD, right, like the heads-up display of the UI, happens in one place, so, right? And that's the best way to manage your code. Keep everything easy to find. Now, in the case of something like a feature like this modal, right, this is kind of a different thing. We're going to actually put this in its own folder. And for me, I already know that this is going to be a larger element, so I'll put it in another folder. But like, let's say I want like a special logo effect or something, or the nav is growing. I might just keep all of that stuff in the UI folder because it's all only used by this one single component. If in fact something starts being used by other components, then I'll make another folder for it. You know, or if it grows, you know, and it needs its own kind of space, I'll make another folder. But for the most part, I'll keep anything related to the UI in the UI folder, unless it is a larger piece of infrastructure like this modal. So we're going to create a new folder for the modal. And we are going to do the same thing. We're going to have an index.js. We're going to have a modal.js. And we're going to have a modal.module.scss. RFCE. So we're going to export our modal. And this is going to be a div class name styles.modal. And this is our global modal system. And right now, we're just going to put the word mobile in there for now. We're going to import our styles from modal.module. And we're going to say modal. Now, this modal, as you can see, it mounts and wipes on, and the content looks like it's also sliding up a little bit. But no matter where you are on the page, it's coming from the same place, right? So this needs to be a fixed element. So the first thing we're going to do is give it a position fixed. And we're going to say inset 0. Inset is shorthand for top, left, right, bottom. So you can just say that. Now, even though I put this on the UI layer, and we're going to let this be visible here now. So we're going to import the modal from at components / modal. And the reason it keeps not auto-populating is because I need to export it from this index folder file. Export all from modal. There we go. So now VS Code will auto-complete these import statements. So we're going to go ahead and just import this. And so you can see we have our modal and everything here. Let's go ahead and position these, though. So we have the top and left. We're going to set up a CSS variable for our space at this point. Actually, we're not. It doesn't matter.
No?
We're just going to call this 40 pixels from the top for now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for some of this stuff, like certain abstractions or there are just certain things where it's like you can go create a variable at the beginning, which is great if you know you're going to be using it a lot. But sometimes you can just hard code it. You can just type it and move on, and you end up never even needing.
Yeah, you're able to move quicker that way.
Yeah. You know, especially if everything's here. So like these spaces might be unique to these interface items, and they have nothing to do with the spacing on the page of your content. You know,
I run
obviously
into this a lot in Figma. Like if I'm going to make a, you know, what is it called, a component out of it, or make a style out of it when I'm doing like headlines or type as I'm going down the page. So I guess my practice is usually like just write it out a few times, and if I find myself annoyingly writing it out a few times, then like it's time to make a style out of it.
yes.
Does that sound true?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Before I make a style, I'll make sure I need a style, because especially in Figma and in code bases, I see people make those abstractions, but then they want to change it someplace else. So let's say you have a variable of space for 40 pixels, and that you're using everywhere, and you're doing like calc space times 2 or divided by 2 to, you know, and you end up having all this markup, and then in one place you're like, oh, it needs to be 60 pixels here. So you overwrite it in one place, and it starts getting overridden in places. You end up with a bunch of variables you're not using. Same thing with like Figma. You know, you might create a bunch of styles, and then you want to compare different styles, so you end up with just a bunch of styles that you're managing. It can get a little messy.
Too many styles here.
Yeah.
Manuel had a good question.
Mm-hmm.
He said, why have both an index.js and module.js file in the modal folder? I don't use Next.js So much so I haven't seen that before.
Ah, okay. Well, for this, the index file, so this actually has nothing to do with Next.js. As a matter of fact, I do it this way to be flexible. If I ever want to leave Next.js or move these React components to another project, I'll just have a folder for the components, and the index file, I tell it what to serve out. So let's say I have a UI, and let's say Christmas is coming for my client, and we have a special UI for Christmas. So I can say, Christmas UI, for example, right? And then here I would just serve everything out from there, right? Because then I can just import Christmas UI from UI. I don't have to do an absolute import directly from this. Christmas. You get the idea. Christmas tree. Or if it's a July promotion, right? So sometimes you might want to run or if you're A/B testing different pieces of UI, you can have different named files in here, and then you just serve them out from a single index, which is going to allow you to just import from there. So for example, what I do, one of my favorite ways, I'm going to open up one of my projects here, just to give you a little example of why I love doing that. So when I'm managing state, right, I have a state folder, and you can see from index I'm serving out the state from UI, and from player state I'm serving out all functions. So you can see here, and not just all functions, but all variables, anything, right? So I can actually import my playlist from state, and it knows where to grab it from. I can import use player state, set player state just from state. I don't have to import it from anything else. And so you can see, for example, on one of these components, let's grab this one, for example. I'm sure I'm getting something from state. Mm-hmm. Of course, that one is not getting anything from state. Let me grab another page. Yeah, so you can see here on the home page of this project, I'm using that playlist, and I'm using UI state, which is a completely different file, a different function from a whole different file. But you can see that my imports are nice and clean. A lot of this stuff really is just aesthetics, right? Like this import, anything that has to do with state has a single lined import. So I can look up and say what's coming from state. There's not going to be multiple imports from that folder. There's only going to be one line importing these from that folder. So it just keeps everything clean. You can A/B test stuff easier. Like if I instead of UI state, if I have like UI state 2 or secondary, I can just type that there and very quickly test out different components. It's much more scalable and flexible. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, the reason there is an index folder is to serve out all functions from all files within this folder. So if I have multiple modals or multiple components in regards to the modal, let's say there's modal controls to control the playback of a modal. So for example, I'll just open up this project that I have here, where I do have a modal here with a video. And you can see when I click on one of these, I'm also pulling up this modal and fading in the video. And I have additional buttons here, as you can see, that are controlling the modal. These modal controls and the dynamic name are a separate component in the modal folder, right? So, but I can just say import controls from modal. That's it.
Manuel likes that. He says he might use it to adapt to his projects. It looks clean, especially with imports.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, this is the cleanest possible way, I think, and it's the most mobile way. If you want to move your folders to another project, you can just drag and drop the whole folder, and it should work pretty well. So here we are. We have a modal covering the screen. What's that?
I have a question. Because on StormProd, so when we have the images and then you hover over it, it changes the state into showing the video. Is this the file structure kind of that you would use to create a state to import from that? Or are we doing that completely different?
Well, for that would be a very different thing. I wouldn't use state for this. This is just a hover. So like you can do this several ways. You can say on mouse over and then swap out the component to the video. Or you can actually have the video ready to go with the image in front of it. And then on mouse over, on hover in CSS, you would just set the image to display none, right? Or fade out or whatever you want. And then, you know, you can swap classes. So this actually doesn't need any kind of state or imports, right? Because it's pretty contained within this one button. But what does need state is the application knowing what video you clicked on, so it knows what video to serve out here, right? Because this has a name. Obviously, there's a video ID. But other than the information that you have up here, the name and the video ID of this video, everything else is the same. All this other UI stuff is consistent across all these different videos.
Cool.
Right?
Thank you.
So that's where I would utilize state, which is what I'm doing here also. So, you know, when I'm clicking, I'm just telling it that a video is active and which video is active. And on this project, as you can see, I'm just created, and we're going to do that also here. But since we're only doing one video, we're really just focusing on the animation part of this sliding up. We're not going to focus too much on the state management. But you can see what I'm doing with my videos here. On player state, I just have an object here where I have the idea of the Vimeo video, the title, the slug, the artwork, and then if it's anamorphic, because some of these I have anamorphic aspect ratios, and some have regular 16:9. So I just put a Boolean for anamorphic, because on my project, I'm only using those two aspect ratios. But you can actually do quite a bit. You can actually just say, you know, aspect, and then, you know, you can put any kind if you want it to be even more flexible. So you can have like squares and vertical aspect ratios, and you have some really, really interesting dynamic grids that conform to the content that's being shown, which is very cool. But yeah, essentially this, I'm just creating a little object, or it's not even an object, it's just an array of objects that have just the information for each video that's required. And you don't even really need this much. You could just have an ID. And depending, if you're using like a Vimeo API, you can get a lot of the information about the video just from the API, as long as you have the ID. I like to type in the title. I put a slug because in the case of this project, I'm going to add like deep linking. So it'll actually show the slug, you know, so it can be shared and pulled up this way. So I did that with knowing in the future that that's what I'm going to have. It'll be like / you know, Ghost Park Berlin, right? So that will work in the future because I put this slug here. It doesn't work now, obviously, because it's something that needs to be added. And the artwork, if the video doesn't load on mobile devices, it'll fall back to that. Whoops. What did I do here? There we go. So let's close this and close this. And before I move on, any other questions? Let's see.
Nothing from the chat.
Okay. So how much time do we have? How long have I been going? Have I been going too long already?
No, you're good.
Another 20 minutes or so. How's your energy?
It's good.
Okay. Yeah, another 20 minutes.
Yeah, just so the people listening know, this is just like a short segment we'll be doing. We're not going to be building the whole thing. We're just going to be kind of moving through it organically each week until we finish it, and then we'll move on to another one. It's just a fun segment for the show. So as you can see here, we've got the modal, and we've got it served out of our UI right up front there. And what I like to do, what I'm going to do with this modal is bump up that Z index just in case. I like it. I want it to sit in front of everything. So we're just going to give this a z-index of like 99 because it's going to slide up and cover up the entire page. As you can see, covers up the entire UI here. Okay. So what we are going to actually add some state for the modal control because, and I guess this is a good time to dip into this. I'm going to create a folder called state, and we're going to add Zustand. Yarn add Zustand. This is my favorite state management package. I used to use Redux, Redux Toolkit. I've used all of them. Redux was always the best because it just scales and it just works. And it works in like enterprise level massive applications without you having to really worry. So it was the go-to for a long time. I also built a steady state package on NPM that I deployed to just really speed up the use of Redux and Redux Toolkit. However, I don't use this anymore because Zustand is a new, not that new, it's actually pretty old, but it is a state management library that just works. You don't have to wrap your application with any providers or anything. It doesn't re-render in the way that Context does. And it's built by the guys that do Dry, which is for 3JS. They also made Jotoy, which is a closer to Recoil, which is like atomic state management. But me personally, I like having just a singular object that represents the state in one place. It's just nicer to manage. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to set up some state outside of the components folder in the source folder. There we go. And the way that state is set up with Zustand is quite easy. So I'm going to create a new file. We're just going to say index.js. And I'm going to say UI state. So here's where our UI state is going to be served out. And I'm going to export all from /UI state. So we're going to get started with our first piece of global state, which is going to control the visibility of the mobile and what is the active piece of media that's being viewed. So when we're playing with state from Zustand, you can see that there's a single line, which is just create, which is very, very, very nice. So import create from Zustand. And as you can see, you can define initial state in a singular object, which we're going to go ahead and do now. So we're going to say const initial state equals. And what we're going to say, initialized, as you can see, this is training on my code base because I use GitHub Copilot. So it knows that you can see that Vimeo ready, like that's my code. It's pulling, it's trained on all of my code, which is very, very cool. But what we're going to do is we're going to say initialized false. We're going to get rid of all of these actually. We don't need any of these. And we can say, now here's a couple interesting things when it comes to logic, because this is another thing that we talked about of like over abstraction. I could have complete separate state for the modal. I could say modal active, make that a Boolean, and then say active video, and then have that an ID. I think the best thing for something like this is active video ID and set it to null. And what this means is, let's go ahead and grab some of these other things before we move on. So what's great about Zustand, it just gives you these little hooks so you can create and then you pass in the initial state. So I'm just going to grab these. I create these same 3 for every piece of state. And then, of course, it grows depending on what's required. But for now, what we're going to do is say export const use UI state, and that is the create function from Zustand. And it's a function that just passes in the initial state that we created. Okay, so we have the initial state, and you can use it. There's another function where you can set the UI state, you pass in the new state, and then you use UI state dot set state new state. And then I always create another one for resetting it, which will set state, but it'll spread out this initial state. And over, in the case here, as you can see, I always have an initialized. And what this is once a person comes to the page, they're going to be clicking around, but once they click around, the client has taken over. And you kind of need to know that it's been initialized, especially if you want to have like intro animations. So you can see like they have an intro animation. You can see on mine, I have this intro animation, right? So you get this little thing that pops up and it slides down, and then the UI fades in. So you can see that there's actually an order, and you can see that these wait until the transition is done. And they're not actually waiting until the transition is done. They're waiting until the app has been initialized, and this gets updated from the transition animation. So the transition plays, and once it's done, it updates the state, and the rest of the app, when as you build your pages, when you're doing animations, you can actually say, if initialized is false, don't do anything yet. So then you know for a fact that people are going to see the animation the first time they come to the site. It'll play after the intro animation. And then as they navigate the site, it'll just play automatically because intro stays initialized. Right? And the reason I went on that diatribe is because when you reset the state from within the client, you want initialize to stay true. And that's why I'm spreading out the initial state, but then I'm passing initialize true here. Because if I reset the state for whatever reason from within the client, the app is still initialized. So as you can see, the app stays initialized and it passes in the rest of the initial state. So I know that's a little bit outside of the scope. We're going a little deep into state management and the way that I manage it. But for the most part, that's how I do it for resetting state. But it's kind of irrelevant right now for this.
It's
for
good
the
to
purposes
know, though.
of
It's
this.
good to see.
Yeah. And just to help me understand, if you were to click into something else, it's just to keep it from doing that intro animation.
Yeah. So you can see here, if I refresh on this page, it waits for this animation. Now it's initialized, and then it plays this. But if I click here, and let's say I did something to reset the state, like a good reset state function is usually for like user data. Let's say the user logs out and I want to reset and wipe all of that user information from the application. I might reset everything, right? I might reset the whole application. But when I click here, you can see that these animations still play, and they're, and they're not waiting really for anything because it's already initialized. So that's just a little trick for kind of managing like the timing and when things play on page load and page navigation. But for now, what's important is import create from Zustand. You have an initial state. For the UI, we're just using initialize and what the active video idea is. And then the exporting use UI state, which is the create function from Zustand passing in the initial state. And then another one to set the UI state, which passes in new state. And the Zustand set state function to update the state with the new state. And the good thing about the way Zustand works in the background is this isn't going to override anything. When I update a piece of state, it's going to update just that piece of state. It's not going to override anything. If you do want to override everything, you want to have a specific function. So you can have very specific actions for pieces of state. These are quite general, which allows you to kind of set any piece of the state, which we're going to do right now, because what's important is this active video ID, right? And if it's null, we know that we're not showing a modal. If there is a video ID that's active, we know the modal should be showing. And we know what video ID goes here, so this is the only line we need for state management, which is quite nice. And what's important here is if we go to our components and our UI, right now you can see we've got the modal text up here, and it's covering the page so I can't scroll. right? So what we're going to do is go over to our UI component, and we're actually going to import use UI state from state. So you see how nice this import looks? And this is the point of having all of the state in a folder with the index file. I can, use UI state. I can bring in set UI state. I can say use, nav state or whatever other states I have. It's all stays organized in this one place. Mm-hmm. And it's the same from file to file. There's only one state import, which is pretty important. So the one thing is, as you can see, I'm already getting this completed a little bit because I'm going to pull in the active video ID. And I could do it this way. The way you're supposed to is actually pull it in directly. And we're going to say state, and then we're going to get state dot active video ID. I just use a S. You can also type state or type whatever you want, right? But this is the shorthand way to do it. And this is going to make sure that you're only getting this variable and that this component is going to re-render only when this gets updated. So when the rest of the state changes, it's not going to affect anything else. Mm-hmm. So we're going to yarn dev this real quick, start up our server. And the reason I pull it in here is because this modal, we don't want it to be shown at all unless there's an active video ID. So I'm going to say active video ID and print modal. And that's it, right? So now if I refresh, you'll see the modal's gone. And we've got some... yes. So now we've got some issues here. And this is a deal with Next.js. This is the UI. And there's a couple interesting things here. So because I'm using hooks, you have to say use client, right? Now what that means is this component, you can see now it's working. But you can see all of these components are going to render on the client, right? And that's fine. You can see that in our layout, source app layout, this component lives alone, right? So when this re-renders, it's not going to affect the children. It's not going to affect anything. And that's what you want. You want any re-rendering behavior to kind of be buried in the node tree. So when this re-renders because of internal changes, it's not affecting anything, right? So for example, the way some people do like a UI, which I highly recommend not doing this way, there's no reason, is that they would actually wrap these children in the UI. But it doesn't make any sense to do that because anytime this UI changes, it's going to re-render everything. And there's literally no reason, there's just no reason to do that. You just can float this stuff on top like I'm doing here, and then nothing gets re-rendered. But let's say we're on our UI and we say, oh, we're using client because here you can see I have the active video ID mounting the component. But let's say, hey, you know what? We don't want this stuff to render in the client. We want this server rendered, right? Because this stuff is actually pretty important for SEO, right? The page title. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, you can actually move this logic directly into the modal. So we're actually going to remove this. We're going to leave the modal there. Okay. And we're going to go into the modal. And we're actually going to have our active ID logic on this modal, which means we don't need to use client on the UI. Okay, so we've cleaned up our UI, and now it's rendering on the server. And in our modal, this now is going to use client. And the good thing about the modal, you definitely want it rendering on the client because it's not visible until the user interacts, right? So what you want to do here, though, the good thing about React is it is just JavaScript, and you can see if there's no video ID, return null. So now, if there's no video ID, nothing gets returned. Right? So I can save this. You can see the modal's gone. Everything works, and everything's server rendered. So the navigation, all the links, all the SEO stuff, nothing's being affected. And this now is just being rendered on the client, which is quite nice. So now, when this ID becomes active, we're going to show the modal. So real quick, I'm going to hide this just so we can see the modal. We're going to give this modal just some styles real quick. We're going to give it a display flex and a background color of our we're going to actually switch these colors up, and we're going to say this is going to be the foreground color now as the background color. And any color that occurs is actually going to be the background color. So this is switching our dark mode, light mode kind of deal. Okay. And on the modal, we're definitely going to have a wrap for the content in the middle, and we're just going to set that to margin auto. So what this does is it will, there we go. Yes, a width and a height is also very important. We're going to say 100 VW and height. Usually I'll do var VH. We talked about this, but for now, because that's a whole other thing that we'll talk about later, we can actually just set the width and height directly. And for some reason, I am not getting styles.modal. And
does the VH help with like all the different devices that would be viewed on?
Yes.
If it is a video.
Yeah. Because if you just used 100 VH, the viewport height units are different on mobile devices from device to device and from browser to browser. So there's like a little fix to make that consistent. So let's see what's going on here. We've got our modal covering the screen. That's great. We've got it position fixed. We are going to want to have a wrap here, so which will wrap the content. So for now, we're going to say div class name styles.wrap. And we're going to say modal. Okay. So you can see now it's centered. And it looks like our color, I guess, just is not coming through for some reason. So we're going to see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and take a look at our UI. No, that's a nav. Our UI is all the way down here, our modal, which is covering everything up. And it looks like for some reason our color is not defined. So let's see why our variables wouldn't be defined. Let's go to our styles, globals. It is because I had 2 colons here. The magic of code, right? Now, and this is the thing. People are like, there's no TypeScript or lint that's going to catch that. That's something that you need to know how to do. That's just how it is. But now you can see we've got modal. And it's covering everything up. Great. That's exactly what we want. And then if the active ID doesn't exist, neither does this component. Okay. So now we're in a place where we have this responsive interface here. We can even make these buttons. Let's do a cool grid on this, because before we get to the animation, because now we're kind of in it, and I think now that we have the foundation set up and we're ready to move to the animation, we can stop here, build out the animation next time. Yeah. Because I don't want to take up too much time here. But I do want to have some fun with CSS Grid. So we're going to come to home. And here is where we have our videos. And that's in the wrap. So right now we're doing a flex direction column, display flex. Let's do a display grid. And let's do a grid template columns. Let's do this in 3 columns. Let's say, okay, let's do 4, for example. So you can see what happens here, right? Now we've got this cool 4-column thing. Yeah. Grid's just fun. You can do a lot with just a couple lines of code. But we're going to do 2 columns. Set to auto. There we go. Yep. And yeah, so I think that's fine for now. Actually, for now, I'll just put it back to flex, because I don't know what we want this grid to look like. So for now, we'll just keep it on a single column, and we can play with it later. And I will just let this max out a little bit higher, like 750. just so we can see the responsive nature of these buttons. So yeah, from here, we will toggle on the class. And actually, before we get to the animation, since we are here, let's go ahead and come down to these buttons. Now, ultimately, these would be their own components. We'd be mapping through an array of videos to print out these buttons. But for now, I'm just hard coding it because we're going to focus on the toggling of the animation. So what I do want to do is we want to say, first of all, we're going to use a hook. So we're going to use client, and we're going to import set UI state from state. So again, using this folder convention, visually you can kind of just close everything down except for what you're focusing on, and you can write these types of beautiful import statements, right? So you're just bringing in set UI state from state. And what we're going to do down here for each of these buttons, we are going to say on click, and we're going to fire a function, and we're going to set the UI state, okay? Whoops. And we are going to set the active video ID to, again, you normally for something like this, we're going to loop through an array. So we would actually just grab the ID off of that. But for now, we're going to hard code these. So, we can just say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because these are just dummy IDs for now. 7, 8, 9. These will be passed in dynamically. And 10, 11, 12. Right. So whatever the ID is, as I was showing you earlier in my project, the IDs relate to the Vimeo ID. So whether you're using YouTube or Vimeo, and also if you look at the object that I'm managing my content with, you could also say like network, right? And one could come from YouTube, or one this can actually come from. You can create a multimedia player that pulls in IDs from any different network, and you can have conditional logic based on the network that you're pulling from. Of course, why overcomplicate things? If you can, just use one service. I use Vimeo. That's the best way to go for videos.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
YouTube.
Oh, right, YouTube. Yeah, right.
We're on YouTube right now.
Yeah, well, listen, you're going to eventually need YouTube and publish it there. But for hosting and serving out the highest quality,
you like the API better.
Vimeo is killing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see now on each of these, when I click, I'm just setting the UI state and I'm updating this active video ID. So what do you think is going to happen when I click on one of these? It's going to open the modal. So you can see now I can click and it updates the state and the modal renders.
Nice.
So the next step is going to be animating this.
Right. Jumping in front of that render and animating it out.
Yes, yeah. And just to give a little sneak peek, all of that happens on the modal level. So the good thing, as you can see, all of the logic for the modal, like whether it's displayed or not, all of its animations, once this variable changes, what we're going to do is, you usually would do like a use effect. And what a use effect is, it's just an effect that happens based on some criteria. And with React, the use effect fires every time something changes. But you can also put in an empty array to only fire once when the component mounts. In this case, we're going to want to fire when this active video ID changes. And most importantly, we're going to want to return if there's no active ID. So now this use effect, we'll put all of our animate logic right here. And it's only going to happen when there is an active video ID. If there's not, then nothing happens. So that's the best solution. That's how you want it.
Love it.
So we're going to work through the Animate logic. Now, of course, like I said, I like GSAP. So we're actually going to use the use GSAP hook, which comes from the @GSAP React, instead of use effect, because I'll walk through the features and why next time, and I'll show everybody how to properly import GSAP and use it with Next.js. But I think for now, we're at the point where we can actually start building this
The
feature.
Kid Super Adventure Squad.
Right? We're at the point where we can start actually building that animation because we have a list of buttons, we have an interface, you click, and we have a modal. So now it's just a matter of animating that modal and then, obviously feeding it the dynamic ID.
Awesome.
Dude,
Yeah.
you work fast. That's really great.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah, thanks.
through it. And
Not like you're just doing a code
Yeah.
demo. You're like setting up the whole project, which is like
Right.
super valuable to all the people who are tuning in.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to start from the beginning, just in case anybody missed. But like, that's kind of the fun thing of starting a new project. It is the starting the new project, taking the things that you use from your previous project, trimming the fat, and every time you do that, you're confident that this project is the best one I've done. Every project you make should be better than the one before.
Yeah.
And if you're keeping your code lean, you're only using what you need. Like what I did earlier, bringing in these styles, kind of going through and just saying, okay, what's useful here? What do I need for this project? Delete everything else. Because you end up with even here, oh wait, I'm not sharing anymore. How do I put my screen back up? There we go. So even here, already we've got this kind of global modal component.
Yeah.
And that type of piece of infrastructure, front end infrastructure, is used throughout the entire site, right? And for something like that, to build something like this that quickly, where you can have a dynamic list of videos and a modal with a media player like this, with such minimal code. It's so great where we're at, and moreover, this infrastructure and this minimal amount of code can scale up to it already is an enterprise level application, right? Regardless of how small it might be. But regardless of how big it gets, this really is it, right? This is the entire infrastructure. Everything else that happens within its own little component folder, and this is where the markup happens. The rest of the application, for the most part, largely stays untouched, right? You have your routes, and you'll add some new files when you want a new route, but this is how clean it looks.
Yeah.
You just add it, you got your routing system, and that's it. You don't need to mess with it. Minimal code. And then, the only things that kind of live outside of these components are your state and your styles. But yeah, these also, for the most part, stay super lean. And you want to keep them very lean. You want most of the magic happening where the component's happening. So any CSS for this UI happens here. I don't have to go anyplace else. If you're working on a project and you say, oh, there's a problem with the UI, you know where to look. It's right here. So yeah, very quickly you can spin up some pretty functional, awesome applications that are ready to scale to an enterprise level with just minimal effort, minimal code. It's super exciting.
Yeah,
the world of front end and full stack programming today.
Dude, I think keeping your code base that organized can add to a lot of the excitement, the pleasure fundamentally of being a coder is having so much control over everything. You're not using a GUI, you're not using a wizard web builder. The reason you're jumping into the code is so you can have ultimate authority over what happens. And so clean your room, have a good code base, and you'll feel better, you'll feel more powerful, you feel more confident, when you're kind of building these things. This is a really great example, Max.
The shows
Thank you.
in the application too is like when you are interacting with that design, it's just more streamlined. It's faster. The loading is nice. Just look, it feels good. So
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah,
like a
kinda-
clean room.
Yeah. As long as you keep your room clean, you can do so many activities.
Yeah.
The current state of programming is in such a fun place because you very quickly can get into the creative side of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can very quickly. I mean, right here, I was already at the list, the way the buttons respond, the modal. Like we're already there. And what it's been 55 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe. And right there, that project's ready. Like it's
ready
to go almost. Yeah. So
speaking of video, we started the stream with just talking about some of the studio suites that have AI that we can create video. And I was thinking maybe for this project it might be fun to use something to create some video. Either we can like try to emulate the video on the project that we're working on, and it could come out really uncanny valley. There's like the chance of that. Or we could just make our own and make it look good. I think to make it look good, that's my preference. But
do you want to share the video that you made previously, Jaina, from Kyber?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I used Kyber, was that a year and a half ago?
A little bit like that,
So
yeah.
it's still in the beta, but they did have added a couple different features since I've used it. But I can share. Let me share Kyber first.
Is there a dev tips GitHub?
Ooh, that'd be good to push that too. Yeah.
Because I was gonna say if you make some videos, we can add them here. We can put this project on dev tips GitHub. Let it be open source if anybody wants to go reference it.
Let me get you access to that.
Push it to the repository.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see.
And that'll be good too, because we can also show the workflow of like actually publishing it to be live, which is literally as easy as pushing it to GitHub. That's how easy it is now. With like, I mean, they all do that, like Firebase, Vercel, GitHub Pages. There's also GitHub Actions, like you can set up your own pipeline. But I really do like Vercel is killing it. I've been using it since the beginning, and I love it just as much now as I did when it first came out. Because you can just push to GitHub, and as long as it's connected, it'll rebuild your project. It'll rebuild whatever branch you're pushing to. You can have like private staging branches. It's very, very cool. Yeah.
This is Kyber.
Which one? Are you sharing your screen?
It says I am. Is it not?
Here you go. I got you.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. This is Kyber.
I like the logo.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the design. It's better for animation, I would say, than like the other that I've shown. I can't wait till Sora is released. It looks fun to play with. But for now, they have you can do audio reactivity, so you can upload a song, and then it would. It's pretty cool. So I feel like we can mess with that too. And then transform is just taking other videos and using prompts to transform that. And then I used here, this is what it was only on, it went over there.
It was Flipbook before.
Yeah, it was just Flipbook, and now it's Motion as well, which is, you can see the difference. I'm not actually scrolling between the two.
Okay.
It's doing it on its own. But yeah, so I can.
Yeah, I'm going to start using this a lot. How much does this cost though? What's the pricing on this?
Gotta buy those tokens.
See, you know what, Max? I'll let you sign into mine and you can mess with it for a little bit. Because I got a lot of tokens. I forgot how much I paid for it in the beginning, but.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I can get tokens, but I'm just curious what their like pricing model is. If they're, if you scroll all the way to the bottom in the footer, I bet you there's a link that they talk about it. Yeah, pricing right there. Yeah, I'm just curious. Are they doing like a monthly plan? Okay,
yeah. Monthly plan. Okay. Yeah, I forgot which one I did. I think I may. It was new, so I don't know. I think it wasn't even. I think it was just an entry, like $20 or something for some tokens. They have a whole plan, which is great.
Yeah, that's tight if you can upload music and it will react. I mean, because like, I make visual stuff for my music, and I love filming, but like, how many buildings can I film? You know what I mean? Like I'd like to branch out into better storytelling. But that is difficult without like actors, and you kind of need to start involving people. And I feel like AI is a really great replacement for humans. So
you could be the actor.
Good collaborators, right?
I could just use AI instead if that has that type of feature.
You could have your waifu be your latest actress.
My digital waifu.
This is a video I made. Travis and I.
You're not sharing anymore.
It says I'm sharing.
Okay, I got you.
Huh, I wonder why.
You're up now.
Yeah, Travis had a talk that he gave on AI last year, and I just kind of like found Kyber by research and messed around with it. But I won't play the whole thing. But I put the music to it. But the thing that I really enjoyed was doing this end credit thing.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks really tight. Prompt design. Yeah, it's gonna be a new. Like you're gonna start watching movies, and in the credits, it's gonna be like prompter. That's gonna be like the title of somebody.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's a new job role now. Prompt design.
For sure.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I've been known to do a little bit of prompt designing in my day.
Dabble in prompts.
In fact, I got an award for it.
I'd be prompt dazzling.
Are you prompt daddy?
Prompt daddy.
Yeah, the prompt daddy T.
Far out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jaina, if you let's do that. Let's make some AI videos, and then we can actually put them on this, publish it, and put it on GitHub and everything.
I think it'd be fun to do. So that I used image, and then prompt. It'd be fun to do text to prompt, try the transform, try the audio rec. Like we can kind of each video can try a different feature of Kyber if you want to do it that way. That could be fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna go play around with Kyber and Sora.
Yeah, let's mess with it. Wait, Sora, not yet, right? Or is it available?
It's not available
I'm
yet.
pretty sure it's available, right?
I don't think so.
Max will find it.
In beta, I mean, like, yeah, I think that it's not available to the public yet. I think they were shopping it around to like Hollywood studios, but really the limitation of something like Sora is render time.
Yeah.
It takes quite a while to
Yeah, you need a
render
pretty
out
beefy machine, right?
Yeah. Cool. So we're going to wrap up for today's episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Max, thank you for your demo. Jaina, great job hosting. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Say goodbye, everybody.
Travis, you're hosting next week, so we're going to have a guest, right? So we won't be jumping into the code that week, but.
That's right. No code next week. We're going to be doing, we have a guest to interview and chat about some really cool topics. And we'll
nice.
See you in 7 days.
So we'll do the coding after that. And just to remind, if anybody's still listening or listening in the future, we will focus on starting the animation from Stormprod.
Lit.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all. Take care, everybody. Have a good
guys. Ciao, everybody.